The installation is called Family Gathering, and what I did was it really is kind of focusing on negative body image and eating disorders. What I did is I decided to talk to different people who had some sort of a relationship to eating disorders, whether they had one or they had a sister or a brother who had an eating disorder. I talked to mothers and fathers about this. And each piece of furniture kind of takes on one person's perspective. The original goal was to really have families come to this installation together and kind of start talking about eating disorders. The subject is something we certainly hear about on the news, but it's not something that's really comfortably talked about at home. It's kind of like if you have a family member who maybe is an alcoholic, people kind of keep that quiet, don't want to share that with other people. They're kind of embarrassed by it. So that's really the way eating disorders really work as well. So I wanted to kind of start that dialogue and hopefully kind of break some of the secretiveness of the disorder. The first piece I made, and probably the first piece I'll talk about, is this piece right here. This is a desk. It's called Hidden Secrets. And this was actually about my own experience of having an eating disorder. I had an eating disorder when I was younger, and again, it was something that was very secretive, something that I never felt comfortable to talk about, and really didn't share that with very many people at all. But I decided to kind of make some work about that own personal experience for me. I really like the desk because it's kind of, for me, I kind of consider it like a metaphor for the mind. And I liked how from a distance and from the outside it looks normal. It looks like any desk you might have. But when you start to open the drawers, you start to see something else. And I'll go ahead and hold this one up here. So inside is a self-portrait of myself, kind of fit into this small space. And it also has a stream of consciousness style writing across the surface, which was really kind of addressing my own experience with an eating disorder, kind of reflecting on those secrets that I wasn't kind of willing to share. And I liked how you can kind of just tuck it away. And it's kind of like how eating disorders and the fact that they're very secretive. Someone's probably not going to share information with you about it unless you start asking. So it's kind of like the more you're actually willing to invest, the more you might find. And that's how this piece works, in the fact that the viewer is invited to touch things. So when I'm finished, I invite you all to kind of take a look around and kind of observe some more things and touch and interact. So the viewer is invited to kind of open these drawers, read some of the text inside. And I wanted to kind of push that even further by kind of utilizing things on the desk. So if you flip through the Rolodex, you start to find some real addresses and phone numbers, but you also find some additional text. And if I take a pencil holder and you open those up, you might find some more secrets inside. So I really wanted to kind of address the entire kind of surface and the piece itself. At this point, I started making some more work about my own experience. And what started happening was when I would show the work to people or have an exhibition or give a talk like this, people would start to come up to me and tell me their own stories. Sometimes they would tell me stories that they had never told anyone. They had never admitted to any living person that they had an eating disorder or they felt this way. And so I felt like that was really exciting for me to have people sharing, and it kind of did what I wanted it to do, which was kind of breaking that silence. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of give them a voice. I also not only had people talk to me who had eating disorders, but also mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers. And that's a perspective that I never kind of came from. So it's hard for me to imagine what it would be like for my own mother to have a daughter with an eating disorder. And so this really kind of informed me from mothers and fathers coming to speak to me. And so what I did was I decided to make this installation kind of looking at all of these perspectives of different people. So when I was looking at this piece, I was thinking about the idea of counseling and talking to someone about this problem that you have. And it really could almost relate to any kind of problem that you would speak to a confidant about or a counselor in that way. And how like what they say starts to kind of get into your own inner dialogue. And so what I did was I made these two chairs, and it's called the dialogue, actually. And these women are supposed to be having a conversation together. And when you start to look closely, they are the same woman. And so I hope that you start to kind of realize that maybe this is kind of some sort of an inner dialogue. This chair in particular is a little bit more taller and it's a little more upright. This woman has a dress on and she's making eye contact with the viewer. She's a little bit more confident. So her voice is kind of the more knowledgeable, educated voice, the more reasonable voice. This chair is a little smaller. She won't make eye contact. She's feeling very uncomfortable. She's in her underwear and bra. And her voice is kind of the more, the little more honest voice, the little more raw voice about how she feels about her body. And when you look closely, you'll see some text. And these conversations are actually meant to be read back and forth. So you can read a few lines here, and then this is kind of her response. You can read a few lines here. And it's kind of about that inner battle of like doing what you know you should do, but also kind of doing what you feel like doing, I guess. If I could talk a little bit about the process, a lot of times people ask me about that. What I do is I find these old pieces of furniture just at thrift stores or on the side of the road sometimes, and I do iron-on transfers onto new fresh fabric. And then I have the text embroidered by a machine, and then I reupholster them, kind of give them new life in that way. So that's kind of how the process that I use. And I would say, as a working artist, you do have to kind of experiment. And I tried a lot of different processes to kind of see how it worked. I had this vision. I started thinking about, I know I want to use text, but what would really be an appropriate kind of text on a piece of fabric or on a chair like this? And I started thinking about embroidery and how that kind of fit the idea of sewing and kind of what you might find in a home. But I knew that I was going to actually have to take apart the piece to be able to embroider it.